Backing up your essential data is vital for any business, but just backing up isn't enough. What if a natural disaster hits your company's data center? That's where a good cloud backup can save the day. Cloud backup is the process of sending copies of system, database, media, or other important files to another physical off-site location. It uses a backup server and data storage systems which are typically hosted by a third-party cloud or SaaS provider. So how does cloud backup work? It starts with an organization's data center, where a backup application copies data and stores it on different media or on another storage system. But after that, there are different approaches to getting it to the cloud. An organization can back up directly, either to a public cloud or a service provider. There's C2C backup, or cloud to cloud, a relatively new process. It's just like the name sounds. Data from one cloud is copied to another cloud. Or a hardware alternative. This is an all-in-one online cloud backup system that includes backup software, disk capacity, and backup server. It's about as close to plug-and-play as cloud backup gets. Most of these systems have a seamless link to cloud backup services or cloud providers. That means these appliances typically retain the most recent backup locally while copying to the cloud. There are definite benefits to cloud backup. They include cost savings, scalability, management, security, resilience, and accessibility. Let's break these down a little bit. First, cost savings. It's generally cheaper to back up data to a cloud backup service than to build and maintain an in-house backup operation. Second, scalability. Cloud scalability means the cloud can grow as the data in the backup grows, but beware, as too much dormant or non-essential data can escalate your costs. Then, management. The cloud backup service provider takes care of many management tasks required to back up and restore data. Then, there's a security benefit. For instance, cloud backups are more secure against ransomware attacks because backups occur outside the office network. Also, backup data is typically encrypted before it's transmitted from the customer's site to the backup service, and data usually remains encrypted while it's stored in the cloud. Cloud backup is also resilient and redundant. Common data backup problems that occur on site can include improper storage, physical media damage, and accidental overwrites, to name a few. But an off-site cloud backup can save the day if any of these problems occur in a local data center. Finally, data backed up to the cloud is accessible from anywhere, which is, as we know now, essential in this age of increased remote work. But you need to be aware of potential disadvantages that come with cloud backup. 3 important disadvantages concern speed, escalating cost, and control. Backup speed depends on bandwidth and latency. For organizations using their internet connection, the backup may be slow. That's bothersome, but it's an even bigger headache when recovering data from the service. A slow recovery of essential data can cripple business operations. Another disadvantage is that cloud costs can escalate as the backup data set grows. That's because businesses pay for backup storage, and those monthly or annual storage charges will accumulate over time. A third disadvantage is that once data is moved outside an organization's physical location, it's in the control of the cloud provider or outside SaaS provider, not your organization. If the provider suffers a disaster, goes out of business, or is hacked, your organization's sensitive backup data could be exposed or become unavailable entirely. To maximize the advantages of cloud backup and minimize the disadvantages, here are some best practices. First, study and understand the cloud backup provider's service level agreement, the SLA. An SLA will tell you how the data is backed up and protected, where vendor offices are located, how to obtain and escalate support requests, and how costs might accumulate over time. It's also your key to understanding where the service provider's responsibilities end. Also, do not rely on any one method or data storage medium for your backup. Try to use the 3-2-1 backup methodology. Make 3 copies of the data, store them on 2 different types of media, and keep 1 copy off-site. Regularly review your organization's backup strategies and data recovery checklists. Validate backups and periodically test your recovery processes. Your organization's staff and technologies must be prepared to recover quickly and effectively if the worst happens. Along similar lines, be sure your administrators routinely monitor cloud backups. They need to be sure processes are working and data is uncorrupted. Prioritize what data or files are included in a backup, depending on how critical they are to business operations. Storing unused or non-essential data can unnecessarily increase your backup time and storage spending. If you need to retain data, but it's not in active use, consider archiving it. Archival data storage tends to be less expensive than backup storage. Please take care with your metadata. If it's applied properly, you'll save time if you need to quickly locate and restore specific files. Keep in mind, some data has special needs, and not every cloud backup provider can meet them. If your company must comply with particular regulations like HIPAA and GDPR, be sure your cloud backup service is certified as compliant with those regulations. At the end of the day, your company, not the cloud backup provider, is responsible for storing your data according to regulatory requirements. And finally, if you're going to back up extremely confidential data to the cloud, use a strong form of encryption. Cybersecurity is always a serious matter. We can sum up 3 main security considerations with the acronym CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Let's look at CIA from a cloud backup perspective. When it comes to confidentiality with cloud backup, it's key to remember that most data on its way to the cloud moves across the public internet. So many cloud backup providers encrypt data throughout the process, including at the starting location, during transit, and at rest in the cloud backup provider's data center. Either the user or the provider will hold an encryption key so that no unauthorized user can access the data. Most users prefer to hold the encryption key, and the provider you choose should offer that option. When it comes to integrity with cloud backup, it's up to the user to determine whether the data is the same when it's read back or whether it's become corrupted. Object storage can help with that. It's a form of validation with built-in integrity checks that are typically conducted as the backup is created. And finally, availability. For cloud backup, the focus is on the data restoration process. Unfortunately, this is the part often overlooked by users. It's important to remember that cloud providers do experience service disruptions that can last anywhere from minutes to hours. So when looking at cloud backup providers, potential users should verify that the provider's uptime or availability is adequate for your organization's needs. Now that you know the basic ins and outs of cloud backup, you're better prepared to assess potential service providers in terms of how they operate and whether or not they can meet your organization's needs. Once you've determined which providers are best suited to your organization's needs, cost will certainly play a decisive factor. Providers typically charge a recurring fee for backup services. That fee might be based on storage space or capacity and data transmission bandwidth. Cost can also be affected by the number of users or servers involved or how often data is retrieved. Keep an eye out for hidden costs, too. Although most products for cloud backup are priced based on a gigabyte per month model, providers may also use a sliding scale model, set usage minimums, and add transaction costs. So always examine the SLAs. As I mentioned earlier, that's a key to understanding how the provider will deal with your data from start to finish and back again during data recovery.